I think.
Good morning again. We have not too extensive, but probably have some work to do and questions may be raised in reference to other bills. I think there's one bill that we have on the full committee. And we will, prior to doing that, we wanted to ask.
I know Delegate Delaney is to be at another meeting. So we're going to ask that her committee will report first, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First bill to report out of our committee is, let's see, we've got the block vote for 4 bills. There were 4 uncontested and then 1
Wait, Delegate
Madam Chair.
Delaney, we'll go with individual bills.
with individual
please.
bills.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So first bill that reported out of our subcommittee is HB 445, Delegate Robinson. And I'd like to move to adopt the substitute.
Second.
Madam Chair, Delegate Robinson's HB 445 deals with light units and candle powers to lumens. Her bill converts the unit of measuring certain lights in vehicles from candle power to lumens. This was something where particularly motorcycle drivers are buying products that we've approved for their use that are often sold with lumens being the unit of measure. And so her bill updates the code so that folks know that they're in compliance with state code when they're purchasing products. That bill reported out of subcommittee with an 8-0 vote, and I so move.
Motion has been made and properly second. This is a recorded vote?
Yes.
Okay.
Report with substitute.
Okay.
Did we adopt the substitute?
Yes,
we got
but we didn't do a voice vote. It was recorded and properly second.
All in favor of adopting the substitute?
Okay. All in favor of adopting the substitute, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. Now the bill.
Motion is properly before the committee.
Okay.
For the substitute.
So the
Madam Chair, would you like me to continue
Yes,
to report?
yes.
We'll vote in a block. Thank you, Madam Chair. Next,
We have to vote on this one.
we're going to vote on this one.
All right. Mrs. Clerk, you may close the roll. And the vote is 17-0 in favor of House Bill 445. Next, Madam Delegate.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next bill is HB 465 by Delegate Keem. This bill deals with local regulation of certain transportation companies. It extends from January 1st, 2020 to October 1st, 2020, the prohibition of offering motorized skateboards or scooters, bicycles, or electric power assist motorcycles for hire in any locality that has not enacted any licensing ordinance, regulation, or other action regulating such business. The bill clarifies that localities are authorized to create or amend such ordinances, regulations, or actions even after any such business in operation in the locality and exercise authority otherwise authorized by the law. The bill contains an emergency clause, and it reported out of our subcommittee 8-0, and I so move.
Okay, so the motion is made properly second, and we're going to ask that the clerk will open the roll, and we may vote. Okay, the bill is reporting out 16-1. Mr. Clerk, you may close the roll. Delegate?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next bill out of our subcommittee was HB 511 by Delegate Bulova. This was the electric vehicle charging stations operations by state agencies bill. It authorizes any agency of state government to locate and operate a retail fee-based electric vehicle charging station on property the agency controls. The bill exempts state agencies from being considered a public utility solely because of the sale of electric vehicle charging service or the ownership or operation of an electric vehicle charging station, and further exempt such service from constituting the retail sale of electricity. Currently, state-operated charging stations may be operated by the Department of Conservation and Recreation, Department of General Services, Department of Motor Vehicles, Department of Transportation, and public institutions of higher education. The subcommittee reported 7-1. There is an amendment that we will need to adopt, and I so move.
Okay, the motion has been made and properly second to adopt the amendment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those that oppose, there are none. And now the bill.
So again, Madam Chair, the bill just as described, did report out of the subcommittee with amendment 7-1, and I so move.
All right. All right. You may, the roll.
Sorry.
That's okay, that's fine. Okay, the bill will be reporting out with an amendment 15-2, and we now may close the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The last bill reporting out of my subcommittee was HB 543, patroned by Delegate Carr. This bill was electric power-assisted bicycles. It amends the definition of electric power-assisted bicycle to include 3 classes of such bicycles based upon the type of motor and the maximum miles per hour that the motor is capable of propelling the bicycle. The bill also provides that electric power-assisted bicycles and operators are afforded the same rights and privileges as bicycles and operators, and limits local and state regulation on the operation of such electric power-assisted bicycles to certain bicycle paths, shared use paths, and trails. The bill requires manufacturers and distributors of electric power-assisted bicycles to include on each electric power-assisted bicycle a label indicating certain technical specifications, and on each Class 3 electric power-assisted bicycle a mile-per-hour speedometer. The bill requires persons operating or riding on a Class 3 electric power-assisted bicycle to wear a helmet. This bill reported out of the subcommittee 8-0, and I so move.
Second.
So the motion has been made, properly second. Once again, we ask that the clerk will open the roll. You may vote. Okay.
Motion passes 16.
The motion passes, the bill passes 16-1. Mr. Clerk, you may close the roll.
That completes your...
And that completes your report.
Yes, that completes my report. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Will,
We'll get the form.
we're going to take up Delegate Bourne's bill at this time, license plate bill that's before the committee. And I invite Delegate Bourne to come before us and share with us your
Thank you, Madam Chair.
deep thoughts.
Good
about
morning,
this
Madam
bill.
Chair, members of the committee. House Bill 593 is not about ducks. It is a revenue-sharing license plate bill that seeks to honor Tommy. Tommy was a dog that was brutally tied up in a park not too far from here, covered with accelerant, and set on fire. This bill I'm carrying on behalf of the Richmond Animal Care and Control Foundation, and the funds that are generated by this would go to Tommy's Fund, which has been set up at the Animal Care and Control Foundation. I believe the president of RAC is here and may want to offer a few words, but that's the bill. They have collected far over the number of signatures required to get one of these bills on the road. So at this time, I'd like to yield just to...
Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair. My name is Christy Peters. I'm the Director of Richmond Animal Care and Control, and I just wanted to say thank you to Delegate Bourne and to all of you for considering passing this bill. The amount of license plates that we were required to get in line was 450, and we've already had 682 come through. So we are supported by the citizens of Virginia, and we hope that you will do the same. So thank you very much.
For being. At this time, if we have anyone who's supporting the bill, House Bill 593, any support? There any opposition?
Madam Chair, can you tell us what the license tag would look like, Delegate?
I don't know that I have a picture of it, but it would probably have just Team Tommy or Tommy's Fund on it.
Okay. All right.
It's very pretty, I've been told.
Okay.
If you go to our Facebook page, you can see it.
All right.
It's blue and it has a picture of Tommy, and then it says Team Tommy as well wins.
Okay. Thank you, Delegate.
Thank you, sir.
No, yeah.
Madam Chair, motion.
Yes, would you please, again, use your, thank you. Yes,
Madam Chair, move to report.
okay. Okay, motion has been made and properly second to report this bill. All in favor? I'm sorry, not all in favor. Mr. Clerk, would you please open the roll?
Happy to.
Okay, Mr. Clerk, you may close the roll. The bill is reporting out 16-0.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir,
I
for bringing
appreciate
it
the time
before
that you
us.
and the committee have
Okay,
afforded me.
thank you. Delegate Jones, at this time, for the Motor Vehicle Subcommittee report, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The Motor Vehicle Subcommittee met on Monday and took care of a lion's share of our work. The first bill I would draw your attention to is House Bill 90 from Delegate Cole. This bill allows licensed private investigators, licensed bail bondsmen, and licensed bail enforcement agents to apply tinting films to darken certain windows of vehicles used in the course of business to a minimum of 20% light transmittance. The current law allows light transmittance minimums of 50 or 35% depending on the window. The bill did contain technical amendments. The subcommittee recommended reporting 7-1, and I so move.
Will you please move the amendments, please?
Madam Chair, I would move the amendments.
Okay. Second. Okay, motion has been made, properly second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those that oppose, thank you.
And Madam Chair, I'd move the bill as reported out, 7-1.
The roll is, the attendance is, not the attendance, the voting is open. Would you please open? Okay, so the measure passes 17-0. Mr. Clerk, you may close the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. The next bill is House Bill 157 from Delegate Fowler, which makes a driver's failure to move into a non-adjacent lane on a highway with at least 4 lanes when approaching a stationary towing vehicle or incident or traffic management vehicle displaying flashing, blinking, or alternating amber lights, or proceed with due caution and maintain a safe speed when passing such a vehicle, reckless driving, which is punishable as a Class 1 misdemeanor. Under current law, such offense is a traffic infraction punishable by a fine of not more than $250, and a failure to so move or proceed with due caution when approaching other such listed vehicles is reckless driving. This is actually part of the move-over law that we passed last year. After contemplation by the committee, we recommended that we refer it to courts of justice. However, it has now been brought to my attention that this needs to go to appropriations, so I would move that we report and refer this bill to the Appropriations Committee.
Is that a voice vote or this?
Yeah, ma'am.
Made and properly second to report and refer to appropriation.
I tried to help you.
Yes, Mr. Clerk, would you open? Okay. House Bill 157 is reporting referred to appropriation. The vote is 17-0. Delegate Jones.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next bill is House Bill 211 from Delegate Hurst. This creates a special license plate for persons awarded the Air Medal or for unremarried surviving spouses of such persons. The subcommittee reported this bill out 8-0, and I so move.
Okay. Motion.
There was no amendment on this one.
Okay. The motion has been made and properly seconded. Ms. Clerk, would you open the roll, please? Okay. Mr. Clerk, you may close the roll, and the bill is reporting 17-0. again, reporting and referring to the courts of justice.
That's just a straight report.
Straight report.
Just straight? Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The next bill is House Bill 411 from Delegate Delaney, which requires the Department of Motor Vehicles to offer information on veteran services available in the Commonwealth to any person who identifies himself as a veteran on a document submitted to the department. There was a substitute with this that added a delayed effective date of January 1st, 2021, and provides that the distribution of the veteran materials can be in a manner as described by DMV. So I would move the substitute at this time.
Second.
Okay. Motion has been made and properly second. A voice vote, please, on the substitute. All in favor?
Aye.
Those that oppose? There are none.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. The subcommittee recommended reporting this bill with the substitute 8-0, and I so move.
Okay.
We got a second.
Okay, so the motion has been made and properly second. At this time, we will now open the roll to vote. Okay, the bill has been 18-0, reporting out. Mr. Clerk, you may close the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. The next bill is House Bill 595 from Delegate Bourne, which authorizes the Department of Motor Vehicles to issue, upon request of a licensed dealer, a license plate that is a combination of a special license plate and a dealer's license plate. This has an amendment on it which removes the requirement that each dealer can only have one series of special license plates and provides that the issuance of the combination plate shall be done in a manner that the DMV Commissioner determines is feasible. So at this time, I would move the amendment.
Motion has been made and properly second to adopt the amendment. At this time,
And Madam
Delegate.
Chairwoman, the subcommittee reported recommending this out to report as by a vote of 8-0, and I so move.
okay. All right. Mr. Clerk, would you open the roll, please? Okay, let me close the roll. So House Bill 595 is reporting out with an amendment. Okay, 18-0.
Madam Chairwoman, the next
Delegate.
bill is House Bill 767 from Delegate LaRocque, who actually has asked that this go by temporarily because he's got some amendments that he'd like the full committee to consider. So I would move that this go by temporarily till the end of today's meeting.
Second? Okay, motion has been made and properly second. This is a voice vote for it to go by for the day. Thank you. Delegate.
The next bill is House Bill 885 from Delegate Sickles, which raises the threshold for per se reckless driving for speeding, for driving in excess of 80 miles an hour to driving in excess of 85 miles an hour if the applicable speed limit is in excess of 65 miles per hour. The threshold for per se reckless driving for speeding for driving at or more than 20 miles per hour in excess of the speed limit remains unchanged. This also had a substitute with it, which added an additional fine of $100 for driving in excess of 80 miles an hour and below 85 miles an hour per hour in a 70 mile per hour zone. I would move the adoption of the substitute.
Okay, second, please. Second. Okay, motion has been made and properly second to move the adoption of the substitute for House Bill 885. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those that oppose?
And Madam Chairwoman, in the esteemed subcommittee's wisdom, we recommended that we report and refer this to the Courts of Justice Committee, and at this time I would so move to report and refer to courts.
Okay, I need to get, this is report
This is report with the
with the
substitute, yes.
to courts of,
Esteemed wisdom.
Referred to courts of justice, yes. Okay, all right, Mr. Clerk?
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
I guess a parliamentary inquiry. Just so I'm clear, this is not a straight referral. This is a report, meaning this committee endorses it before sending it to the other committee. Is that right?
Report and substitute to refer, yes.
Okay. May I ask the chair of the subcommittee a question before we do that?
I yield.
Okay. I'd ask the chair, and if this is the court's issue, the issue is we're reporting it, not just referring it, but was there any discussion or testimony about the fact that there's compelling evidence that people don't get tickets for just a little bit over the speed limit? That's both anecdotal but also driven by data that in other words, that there's certainly a 5 to 7 mile an hour rate above whatever the actual limit is before the officers start writing tickets. Was there discussion of that?
I would say to the delegate that there was some discussion with the state police, and I believe Delegate Adams asked a question or two about this as well. and the insurance industry was there and represented and testified as well. So we did discuss it, but I think the ultimate conclusion was that while we did support the intent and the spirit of what Delegate Sickles was trying to do, that it remained beyond our purview as a transportation subcommittee, and that's why we said we endorse it, but we would like to have courts review it as well.
All right. Madam Chair, I'd like to speak to the bill at the appropriate time.
Yes. Delegate Bell? Yes. This is the appropriate time.
I pushed my speaker. There we go. Okay. All right. So again, if this was a simple referral, I wouldn't be going through this exercise, and I'm going to see it again in courts. But the issue would be, at what speed do we want people to have the higher penalty rather than just a speeding ticket? And just anybody that practices in those courts, which I do, but it's also consistent with everybody knows on the street, which would be as long as you're close, you won't get a ticket, which is also consistent with the data, which would be there's a number of miles an hour over the speed limit we set, which is what the people will actually drive and actually receive tickets for. And it would be my belief and feeling that this is fast enough, so I'm going to be voting no. Thank you.
So at this time, Mr. Clerk, if you
Madam
would.
Chair?
Yes. Hurst, Delegate Hurst.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Speaking to the bill, and maybe a question for Delegate Bell, and certainly he is practicing in these courts and has, a volume of experience in it, but he's referencing data and maybe even said well-known data. I'm just curious if he can share that with some specificity so that we might be more educated on that data.
Delegate Bell.
I don't have that. I'm sorry. Not on a 9:30 in the morning. I have it somewhere, but I don't have it available. I'm sorry. I'll try to find it and share it. Thank you.
Delegate Hurst.
Madam Chair, I wish that I had that just so that I could be more informed before the vote, but thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Thank you. Being that this will be heard once again in courts of justice, it may be appropriate for further discussion and the patron to also be there. So some of these questions he's in a position to answer. Okay. All right, Mr. Clerk, would you open the roll? Okay. House Bill 885, report and refer to courts and justice at 17 to 1. Mr. Clerk, you may close the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. The next bill is House Bill 989 from Delegate Batten, which provides a process whereby a motor vehicle, trailer, or semi-trailer with multiple owners can be titled with a designated beneficiary. The bill requires the consent of all owners and provides that the transfer of ownership would occur upon the death of the last surviving owner. And the subcommittee recommended reporting this 8-0, and I so move.
Okay. Thank you. At this time, Mr. Clerk, would you open the roll, please? The bill reports out 18 to 0. Mr. Clerk, you may close the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. The next bill is House Bill 1066 from Delegate Adams, which requires the overtaking of a vehicle to use his lights to signal the driver of the overtaken vehicle to move to the right. Current law provides for the use of audible signals. There is an amendment with this bill that moves all light signals as well as audible, and I would move the amendments at this time.
Okay. Could I have a second for the adoption of the amendment? Okay. Motion has been made and properly second for the adoption of the amendment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those that oppose, there are none.
Thank you, Madam
Delegate.
Chairwoman. The subcommittee recommended reporting this with amendments by a vote of 6-2, and I so move.
Okay. Yeah. House Bill 1066, we'll report, well, the vote for with an amendment, please. Okay. All right. All voted. 17 to 1. The bill is reporting out. You may close the roll. Thank you. Delegate.
Thank you, Madam Chair. House Bill 1126 from Delegate Davis limits the current prohibition on and remedies for abandoned, unattended, or immobile vehicles to vehicles that weigh at least 75 pounds. The subcommittee recommended reporting this 8-0, and I so move.
Okay. The bill has been, motion made and properly second. We're calling for the vote. Mr. Clerk, would you open the roll? Okay. The bill is reporting out 17 to 0. Mr. Clerk, you may close the roll. Thank you. Delegate?
Madam Chair, House Bill 1259 from Delegate Hodges adds the town of West Point to the list of counties and towns that are permitted to regulate or prohibit the parking on any public highway of watercraft, boat trailers, motorhomes, and camping trailers, and to regulate or prohibit the parking of commercial vehicles on any public highway in a residence district. The subcommittee recommended reporting this 8 to 0, and I so move.
Okay. Motion has been properly second. Mr. Clerk, would you open the roll? Okay. House Bill 1259 supporting out 17 to 1. Mr. Clerk, you may close the roll. Thank you. Delegate Jones.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. House Bill 1374 from Delegate Campbell is substantially similar to Delegate Sickles' House Bill 885, and the subcommittee recommended incorporating Delegate Campbell's House Bill 1374 into House Bill 885 by a vote of 8 to 0, and I so move.
Okay. Motion has been made properly second. Mr. Clerk, would you open the roll, please?
Which one are we going to incorporate?
This is House Bill 1374, incorporating 885 into it. Okay. Okay. House Bill 1374, reporting out with 885 incorporated to it at a vote 18 to 0.
And Madam Chair, I have
Clerk.
one final motion.
Okay.
And I would like to speak to the motion before I make the motion, if that's okay.
Yes.
Okay. Madam
Delegate
Chair,
Bell.
we actually reported House Bill 90 out of this committee a few minutes ago with amendments. However, there were actually no amendments on that bill as it came out of subcommittee. And so I would move that, having voted on the prevailing side, that we thereby reconsider House Bill 90 with amendments to report it out
House
without
Bill
amendments
90.
as we did in the subcommittee.
All right, Delegate Jones has asked for the reconsider House Bill 90. The motion has been made and properly second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those that oppose. And now we have to vote.
Motion is to report as reported by the subcommittee without any amendments, and I so move.
Okay. Okay. Motion has been made properly second. We'll open the roll to vote. Okay. House Bill 90, reporting out 17 to 1. Mr. Clerk, you may close the roll. That's that in your report?
That does. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And thank you for the work. Delegate Carr?
No,
No? No, we don't.
Moving on to the Secretary.
Now we have a presentation from the Secretary Valentine. Thank you for joining us today to share with us all the great things that are being done.
Thank you,
in the
Madam
Commonwealth.
Chair. I'm just going to pick up with that riveting presentation that I was bringing to you last week. Would you like me to repeat it, Delegate Austin? Sorry, I get a little excited sometimes, but thank you so much. This is just an overview of the governor's transportation bill that we had before the session. We are not presenting the legislation. The patrons will be doing that. This is an overview of what is in the bill. For some of you, you have been, we've been managed to meet with you and present this to you, so I am sorry if it is redundant for you, but wanted to make sure that the full committee saw this, and then we hope to follow up with you individually. Okay, how do I get to it? Oh, sorry, there you go. Okay, we ended the presentation last week. I told you that in FY18, for the very first time in Virginia's history, vehicle miles traveled went up in Virginia and collections for motor fuels tax went down. Predicted for a long time, it happened in FY18. Revenues had to be adjusted down. As a result of this information, I was asked to do a sustainability study in 2019, this past year. We have a very diverse working group, from the petroleum industry to the environmentalists. I believe everyone understands that in the next 10 years, we need to build a bridge that makes transportation funding sustainable. Beyond 10 to 20 years, Transportation will most likely be be funded by some kind of mileage-based user fee or a VMT fee. But in the short time during this period, fuel efficiency is having a major impact on our collections. The Smart Scale in 4 years is down 45%, and over the next 10 years, KPMG is predicting that our collections will be from the gas tax will be down below $500 million, a gap of about $234 million from where they are today. The major impact coming from fuel efficiency. States all over the country are facing this issue. 21 states have increased the gas tax. 11 of them have indexed it to an index that's actually growing. As I mentioned last time, the national average is 36.3 cents per gallon. Statewide, Virginia's at 16.2. If you bring in the weighted average, that would include the 2.1 in Northern Virginia, Hampton Roads, and along 81. We're at 22 cents. We're the 9th lowest in the country. Today, transportation funded, this is what it looks like, how transportation is funded, with some modes of transportation being funded with sources that are often unpredictable, expire, perhaps depend on what happens in Congress. If we are able to get this bill through, all of transportation would be funded from a Commonwealth Transportation Fund. All modes of transportation would be held harmless. They would be funded based on the percentages they have today, stabilized and all allowed to grow. It actually demonstrates we have a multimodal system here in Virginia. How do we do that? We're going to restructure the funding mechanism in transportation. We have introduced raising the gas tax by 4 cents a year for 3 years, and then in year 4, tying it to CPI. It is an average of about 2.2%. As I mentioned to you last time, in 2013, we tied the motor fuels tax to the sales price of gas. In 2013, the wholesale price of gas was $3.17. In December, my most recent report, the wholesale price was $1.73. We are static because we put a floor in it. But our revenues are certainly not declining, and with the demand for fuel going down, that is the reason for the decline. The bill also introduces a highway use fee for fuel-efficient vehicles. Today, all electric vehicles pay a fee, a $64 flat fee, but we've not been able to capture the impact of fuel efficiency, which is tremendous on our system. There's a 15% discount for fuel-efficient vehicles. They would pay 85% of the average car in this program through the registration fee. We're also introducing a program that will be delayed a year. We're asking DMV to actually create a mileage-based user fee in Virginia so that those who buy a car and drive less than the average, 11,600 miles, would be able to capture that real data and get a refund or have it applied to next year's registration fee. We're also proposing to cut the vehicle registration fees in half, nearly in half. Today it's $40.75. We propose cutting it by 20. Again, it's another static fee, this one only paid by Virginians. This is a little more definition of what that highway user fee would look like. If the average car pays $100 a year in gas, a fuel-efficient vehicle paying $80 based on the make and model of their car, 85% of that difference is $17. That's how it would be calculated. If we're able to implement this program, you can see how the revenues would increase in the coming years with FY24, the first time that we'd be tying it to CPI. It does include the highway use fee. As you can see, it's a small percentage, but over time, it will grow, and in 10 to 15 years, it is forecasted that that's how transportation, that will be the main funding source of transportation. We're trying to prepare a platform for what that future will be. I will mention we are also part of the 95 Corridor Coalition, working with 13 states on how this would be implemented, interoperability. So we are part of that process going forward. By doing this, transportation would take on funding the debt for Route 58, the Northern Virginia Transportation District, and Oak Grove. It would allow $60 million a year to go back to the general fund, which today actually funds those programs. Transportation would take that over. We would be responsible for making sure DMV is paid for all the services that we are asking them to do throughout this program. You can see that the growth in transportation revenues is steady and allows us to do very important things. Again, Smart Scale is down, but by year 4, it would be increased by about $200 million, bringing it to about $1 billion. So important, it does impact the number and the types of projects we can fund. In this last round, we had a record number of applications in Smart Scale, and that's for new capacity projects. The amount of money requested through the program was more than $7 billion. It will restore the funding to transit because the CPR bonds expired. Some of you may remember that transit has a hole of $60 million. These revenues would be able to close that gap. We were asked by the General Assembly to look at special structures like the Robert O. Norris Bridge. The bill was actually named that, the James River Bridge, the Rosslyn Tunnel in Arlington. There's about 25 of them in Virginia. Complex, vital structures to our transportation system. Not a penny has been set aside for these structures to be rehabbed or replaced. This program gets, by year 4, $85 million a year to our special structures. It would allow us to meet the conditions. I believe Commissioner Britt came and gave you an overview of how we are shifting our business model to look at the life cycle of our assets. We'll be able to invest in our interstate secondary roads, which I know are critically important, and increase funding for city streets. It will allow us to meet our obligation for the PREA funding for WMATA. Those bonds expire this year. We have a $50 million match, which is critical for Maryland and D.C. to contribute their share, and for the federal government to contribute theirs. Altogether, it's $300 million. Our match is $50 million. We're also creating a transit incentive program in 2 phases. One is for those localities with 200 million more in population, where it's really providing ways to make our transit routes more efficient, to have single fare cards, to really consolidate and make the transit system more seamless, and making our routes more customer-driven. And across Virginia, we're looking for ways to address transit for low-income individuals, looking at fares and routes. In the bill, there is the creation of a Virginia Passenger Rail Authority. As I mentioned to you last time, we have this initiative with CSX that is going to allow us to really transform how we move people over the next 10 years. Again, with nearly hourly service between Richmond and Washington, expanding service to Norfolk and Newport News, and increasing VRE along the Fredericksburg line by 75%, increasing it, introducing late-night service and weekend service. We really need the rail authority in order to manage the real estate and the contractual agreements for this program. It also authorizes the ability for us to use the inside 66 tolls for the construction of Long Bridge. We are working in partnership with the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission in order to be able to do that. It also consolidates the Rail Enhancement Fund and the IPROC funds into a Commonwealth Rail Fund, allowing us really to maximize our investments in passenger and commuter rail as well as freight. I don't know if the port has presented to you yet. I believe they're on your agenda. These investments in freight are equally as important as we're making investments to expand their capacity by 40%. Another focus of the bill, and the last one, is really on safety. We talk about safety. This is a time when we're really making investments and putting our money where our mouths have been. It includes in the bill making seatbelts a primary offense, prohibiting the use of handheld devices, prohibiting open containers in the passenger area of vehicles. I'll just pause there for a minute. Those 3 have a delayed enactment. It's a year where we will be doing training with law enforcement, training with state police, creating an education program for people. on the value of this. The number of fatalities in Virginia are going desperately in the wrong direction. We had 819 people die on Virginia's roads last year. It's interesting that the number of fatalities are going up, serious injuries going down, and the theory or hypothesis behind that is that people are so distracted they're not braking. I will also say that half the people who die in Virginia are not wearing a seatbelt. We really want to address this in a very smart way that helps people understand the importance. It also involves speed enforcement and the authority for local governments to lower speed limits in business and residential areas. This is asking the DMV commissioner to work with chiefs of police and many organizations to develop this program and educational materials. Finally, I will say that other provisions in the bill restores in the House, in the Speaker's bill, $45 million in funding to the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority through the grantor's tax and transient occupancy tax. This was the introductory bill 2 years ago by Delegate Rip Sullivan. That funding, in the end, was pulled from MVTA. That restores $45 million back. It does authorize the debt for I-81 corridor. I know that we have members here, Delegate Austin, Delegate Hurst. Your committee approved that debt authorization, as did the CTB. That debt authorization is included in the bill. It does allow NOVA, Northern Virginia Hampton Roads and the I-81 corridor, the 2.1%, to, go ahead.
Sorry, Madam Secretary, we also have Delegate Collins.
Oh, Delegate Collins, I'm so sorry. Thank you. The committee did authorize, thank you. I was like, oh my God, am I not paying attention to the chair again? Yeah.
He's over there tucked in the corner, so.
The amen quarter. So your committee also approved the debt authorization. The CTB as well, thank you.
Madam Chair.
That is in the bill. It also allows the 81 corridor, Northern Virginia and Hampton Roads, to their 2.1% to be indexed to CPI, so it is allowed to grow. And it does provide funding to complete Quarter Q in Southwest Virginia, the last 1.6 miles.
Madam-
That is a very broad overview.
Madam Secretary, before you leave that slide, can you go back, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I thought last year we restored some of the Northern Virginia transportation money through the I-81 legislation, did we not?
We did. We restored 20 million, well, as part of the VMTs, that portion, $20 million, did get back to the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority. They actually contributed more than $100 million. So
we've not made them whole yet?
I will say that in the bill that when we came into this position and we were looking for compromises on the bill, when I met with the authority, they wanted to contribute to WMATA. It was one of their top priorities. They did not want to contribute $100 million. So the governor put amendments when the tax increases were removed. The governor introduced amendments that would have restored $30 million. Those were not accepted by the House. This is getting back to the original bill. It restores $45 million, and through the 81 bill, we're restoring $20 million. So if all of this were to pass, it would restore $65 million back to the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority, allowing them to also focus on other priorities.
Madam Chair, my memory recalled the $30 million, so I thought we came close to making them whole, so the $45 million caught my attention. I apologize. Thank you.
No. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome.
Madam Chair.
Delegate Rome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I would also just note here, just following up on what Delegate Austin was talking about, that with Delegate Watts, she has HB 729, and that would be independent of the legislation that we are working on here with the, basically what the Speaker of the House is carrying. And I guess I would ask Madam Secretary if you could speak to how much additional money Delegate Watts' bill would restore for the MVTA in addition to the $45 million that we're looking here, plus the money that came in through the I-81 bill.
I yield to Delegate Watts.
Thank you very much, Madam Secretary and Madam Chairman.
Delegate Watts.
And again, it is a moving target. We have kept a separate bill with robust participation from over a dozen stakeholders who raised this tax in the region several years ago to go to an established list of decades-old projects that were unaddressed. The total lost as diverted to WMATA, which was a newly recognized problem, was over 100 million. So you can see the dollars that you are talking about money that was raised in the region that was pledged to go both to the authority and 30% of it to the localities who were raising this with extra taxes. And that is what is at stake. As we go through this bill, by keeping the separate bill for discussion, it will ultimately be part of the all provisions that everyone agrees on. It will be in the omnibus bill. That last committee meeting stopped at 10:30 last night. Other than that, they will all be identical language, but this allows us to make sure that all the provisions are there. One of the big concern being that the authority got the highest bond rating it could when it went to the market before the diversion to WMATA, on the assumption that these monies that were raised locally were pledged to the local projects. So there is a concern about the way in which we handle it, that we don't jeopardize that bonding assumption, that we have control over those funding streams to commit to bonding and not have this situation of it being diverted off.
Question, Madam Chair. If I may ask a question of the delegate.
Delegate Reed is up.
Oh, I apologize.
Then
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Secretary, just for informational purposes, could you share with us where Corridor Q is in Southwest Virginia?
It's finishing that last 1.6 miles down to Grundy. You know, it stops there. It would complete the road down to Grundy.
Which road?
The existing road.
State road, interstate. I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Yes.
What is it?
State road, interstate.
Right, it connects to 460, but what is that road called? The one down to Grundy. Is it 460?
Yeah, it would be the new 460.
Well, I know it's the new, you know that, the
Coalfield
new
Expressway.
460. So can you tell me? Oh. It is that last 1.6 miles, and really, we're trying to be as efficient as we can in doing all sections of Vestas, Crooked Oak. We're on Lover's Leap right now, doing that, and it's the last. We're working on that, and so it is the last 1.6 miles. And if it has a special name, I'm sorry.
No, I was just curious. I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I was just curious where this was located, because Corridor Q and Southwest Virginia are both, well, Southwest Virginia is a very large area, and Corridor Q is a very ambiguous name.
Delegate Austin.
For Delegate Watts, the Northern Virginia transportation dollars that were used for WMATA, was that for the metro improvements?
I would say, Madam Chairman, that again, there were decades of transportation problems that included transit, as long as it dealt with reducing congestion, that were addressed with the local taxes. I want to underscore that. The local taxes that were supposed to be controlled locally, either the 70% with the authority or the 30% back to the jurisdictions. In addition to that long, long list, along came after that this WMATA recognition of unaddressed serious maintenance problems, and looking at the pledge that Virginia had to make to that. That is when the state reached into the local funds and took local funds to pledge to WMATA. And that then not only depleted those decades of projects that had led to the support of the realtors, the very reluctant hotel owners who, with the TOT, that then broke faith with addressing the prior need, and it also then had the problem of the state diverting funds that were being pledged to these other list of needs, being able to reach in and divert. So we are trying to make whole, and with additional taxes, local taxes, to make whole the original commitment, while doing it in a way that gives as much comfort as possible to the bond market that the authority is actually, and the localities are actually in control of those funds as they pledge it to projects.
Madam Chair, I will just, with this discussion, I will just say that when we were working through the compromise, we came in, General Assembly's already, the bill was already introduced. There was a great deal of money coming out of the authority. We worked on a compromise. I will say that Monica Bachman, who's the executive director of MVTA, Marty Noe, the chair, were some of the first people in my office. We worked a long time, a couple weeks on getting a compromise. I saved the voicemail from Marty Noe that said it was fair.
Delegate Hurts.
It's a question from Secretary, please.
Quickly.
Let me respond to Delegate Hurts, because again, please use your request to speak, and that way I can. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to answer Delegate Reed's question for the betterment of the entire committee, as the representative of Southwest Virginia, Corridor Q is U.S. Route 460 and the Coalfields Expressway, which is U.S. Route 121.
121.
Delegate Austin.
Madam Chair, I apologize for not using my RTS button.
I'm just trying to keep
Madam
up. I'm
Secretary,
sorry.
are we intending to make Northern Virginia Transportation Authority whole by increasing the transfer occupancy tax and those dollars going to Northern Virginia Transportation Authority? Is that where the dollars are coming from to make them whole?
The increase in those two revenue sources in the governor's bill, which is now the speaker's bill, is to restore $45 million.
And then after those dollars are restored, those transient occupancy tax and grantors dollars will then go to the locality for maintenance of WMATA? Is that tax appropriated specifically?
In addition to,
you and I can,
yes,
we can discuss this off the record. I don't want to tie up the time of this morning of the secretary. I just wanted a brief answer. I apologize. Dr. Watts, I'll come to you and you and I'll have that conversation.
Madam Chairman, though, for clarity, we are talking about an additional grantor's tax, an additional transient occupancy tax to generate the money. This is not coming out, we Lord knows, we need all we can get, and there will also be a restatement of the kill switch that this money that we are raising is not to take place of the state's commitment and obligation to all the transportation needs as we are part of the state, but we're raising additional money.
Yes,
okay. Thank you. Madam Secretary, I have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
The cutting of the registration fee, does that affect the localities at all?
The localities will be able to continue to charge, if they charge within their jurisdictions, the same amount they do today. This is a statewide registration fee. And the thinking behind it is that, today for an average vehicle, it's $40.75. That is money that every Virginian pays. Mm-hmm. It's not based on the use of the transportation system. Only Virginians pay it. By using the gas tax, we're actually able to capture more out-of-state drivers who actually use the system, and that was the thinking behind it.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Secretary, and thank you for your presentation. And I don't think there's any further business. The meeting is adjourned.